So, good morning, everyone. Please be seated now. We would like to commence today's AFET meeting. Item number 1 is the adoption of the agenda. If there are no objections from your side, then I propose to adopt the agenda as it stands. Item number 2, our meeting today is as usually being web streamed. Be aware of that. And we have interpretation available in the following languages: English, French, German, Italian, Dutch, Greek, Spanish, Portuguese, Hungarian, Polish, Slovak, and Bulgarian. No Estonian, at least according to my speaking notes. Then, item number 3, I would like to very warmly welcome to our extraordinary meeting today the High Representative and Vice President Kaja Kallas. A warm welcome to you, dear Kaja, to your committee in the European Parliament. Thank you for being with us today to share with us how you see the current priorities of the upcoming months in the field of the common foreign security and policy. As you may know, on the 2nd of December, we adopted in our committee the annual report on the implementation of the EU CFSP for 2025. The report, from my point of view, sets out a clear and strategic orientation for the European Union's foreign policy at a time of rapidly growing instability. There is no need to tell you that we are facing accelerating authoritarian pressure, a weakened multilateral system, and rising global competition. We believe as Parliament the European Union must respond with greater unity, with greater resilience and capacity to act. Our report is, of course, a response to your Council report concerning the main aspects and basic choices of the CFSP and CSDP. The vote in plenary is always combined with a plenary debate with you under the Article 36 debate. We are looking forward to it. And now I would like to give you the floor without any further ado. Colleagues, we have the following structure for today. The High Representative Vice President will speak for 15 minutes. Then we will have a first round of coordinators taking the floor. Then the High Representative Vice President will respond, and if time then allows, I will give the floor to further members according to the Catch the Eye procedure. And we have to conclude today's meeting on time at 12 o'clock. So, without any further ado, I give the floor to you once again. A warm welcome, dear Kaja, to the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Sorry. Dear Chair, honourable members of the committee, it's good to be here to wrap up this year. As we met the first time in November last year, we all knew it's going to be extremely tough year, and so I want to first to thank you for this commitment for supporting Europe's role in the world in this tough year, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be easier, but being realistic, I think it's not going to be any easier the next year. The tasks I mentioned, which we continue to face, are the greatest challenges of our time. A full-scale war on our continent, actors actively seeking to change the rules-based international order, and shocks to the global system. But I also underlined the opportunities to expand our foreign policy footprint by supporting Ukraine, building up our defense collectively together with our closest allies, and working more closely with partners to strengthen regional stability and economic integration. In 12 months, we have made substantial progress. Let me just give you 3 examples. First, strengthening Europe's security and defense. We secured record funding to support Ukraine's defense, as well as 5 major sanctions packages against Russia. These deprived Russia from the funds to really fund its war machine, tens of billions of euros. But we now need to stick to our guns. The war in Ukraine drags on because Russia refuses to stop. Putin pretends that Europe is the obstacle to peace when nothing could be further away from truth. This war is taking place on European soil. So how the war ends matters to Europeans. It's not in any of our interests that Russia comes back for more. The cost of supporting Ukraine today pales in comparison to what we would have to spend on a full-scale war on the European Union. Europe has the economic leverage to force just end to this war, but lever only works when you use it. That is why we have, we have to work on the EU reparations loan, and also we have to put further sanctions in place. The IMF estimates that Ukraine will need 135 billion euro for 26 and 27. The Commission has proposed options to help to cover this, including the reparations loan. These are decisions to be taken collectively the European way. Giving Ukraine the resources it needs to defend itself does not prolong the war. It can help end it. In parallel, we set the stage for the biggest overhaul of European defense since European Union's inception, from white paper and the roadmap towards readiness 2030 to the blueprints of strengthening military mobility. Europe is investing record levels on defense. These strategies will translate that money into capabilities that keep our citizens safe. We have also signed partnerships on security and defense with 8 countries, including United Kingdom. These partnerships are already bearing fruit, from European funding to Ukraine with Norway, to working with Japan under the EU military operation EUNAVFOR Aspides that protects freedom of the navigation of the sea. There is always safety in numbers. Only last month, EU and Indian warships, for example, successfully foiled a pirate attack off the coast of Somalia. This underlines how vital the EU's civilian and military missions and operations are. But I agree that we need to be more focused. We need more focused missions and operations with clear objectives. Dear members, my second example in the work over the last year to defend multilateralism. Multilateralism means multiple voices around the table, the antidote of power politics. It means collective decision-making for collective challenges. It is a celebration of diversity. It is a conviction that incorporating different perspectives creates better policy for all around. Although imperfect, it is the best international system we have. So some openly question it, but we should not. The European Union should instead step up its defense. And you can count on me to do this as well. I think about the Southern Neighborhood Ministerial meeting where Syria joined for the first time after 14 years. This meeting was also the first of its kind, bringing North African, Arab states and Israel together after the horrific Hamas attacks. 2 single events I chaired this year brought over 100 delegations to Brussels from more than 70 ministers to the city. One of those meetings was a meeting with the African Union. This focused on greater collaboration on critical raw materials to artificial intelligence, regional integration and mobility. Our global gateway projects continue to offer win-win opportunities across all of these areas in Africa and across the globe. The other was Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum. This brought together 64 countries from the east coast of Africa to the Pacific Islands. And here, a major focus was on maritime security and the protection of the undersea infrastructure. Around the table, I heard a strong commitment to work together to protect our data cables and increase our resilience against potential threats. We will now take this work forward. Dear members, my third example is the work we have done with our partners across the globe. Starting with our closest neighbors, the case for EU enlargement today is clear. The EU is a stronger player on the world stage when others join. The prospect of European Union with more than 27 member states by 2030 is now a realistic goal. There will be leaders' discussion on enlargement already next week. I also want to mention the steady increase in the alignment of candidate countries with the EU's common foreign and security policy. This is not just a box-ticking exercise. Rather, it underlines that these countries see the world the way we do and want to shape it with us. We should all welcome this. At the same time, we also see that the closer a country gets to the European Union, the greater the pressure from malign foreign influence. Russia and its proxies are ramping up its disinformation campaigns, including in Armenia, ahead of the next year's elections. Moldova was this year's primary target, but also the best proof that this challenge can be overcome. I want to thank this committee for keeping up the fight against foreign interference high on the agenda and recognizing the urgency of increased ambition and resources to fight it. On my side, we will keep mobilizing the External Action Service assets we have created over the last decade while supporting civil society and free media. As we learned from Moldova, countering foreign interference and defending the integrity of elections requires a whole-of-society approach. And let me add here that I welcome our cooperation on election observation. The European Union has so much experience to offer across the globe in defense of democracy, and I look forward to our mutual conference in spring on this important topic. Moving to our partners in the Gulf and the Middle East, over the weekend I was in Qatar and Jordan, and in all my discussions, the desire to build a better future for the region together was palpable. The Gaza's future is front and center of our work. Yes, there are many challenges, this is very clear, but there are also many opportunities. The European Union is the biggest enabler of a two-state solution because we keep our focus on practical requirements. For example, for Gaza to be governed by the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority needs to function effectively and be able to manage the security of the Strip. And this is why we are the biggest financial backers of the Palestinian Authority and champion of reform. Our EUPOL COPS mission is ready to be deployed to train the future Palestinian police. And the EU adds value by addressing the entire criminal justice chain. We can train prosecutors and judges, support Palestinian Judicial Institute in Ramallah, and help harmonizing Gaza's criminal code with the West Bank. Beyond Gaza, we are contributing to regional security. This includes military-to-military confidence-building measures in Lebanon, the dialogues with Syrian civil society. We were also the first ones to lift Syria sanctions in effort to support reconstruction efforts in the country. So speaking of our partners, I want to address here a concern I think is in all of our minds. The U.S. national security strategy sends a clear message that we should be more self-confident. When it comes to Russia, yes, but also when it comes to China, and sometimes regarding our own allies like the United States. But it is, as a citizen who has lived under an autocratic regime, I can tell you that European Union, and then here also there are many of us who have lived under autocratic regimes, the European Union is the very essence of freedom. So any such criticism regarding the liberties here should be aimed at a different direction. Russia, perhaps, where dissent is banned, where free media is banned, where political opposition is banned, where X or Twitter as we know it, is in fact also banned. The European Union, 27 countries who have voluntarily chosen to work together, and we have several others who want to join. That shows the quality of us. Now, dear members, the EU has significant economic leverage in the world. We have more leverage towards China, for example, than we tend to think. Our new economic security strategy spells out all the tools we have. If we use them proactively, we can protect our companies and the European industry. At the same time, Europe's leverage does not come for free. If we want to increase it, we need to increase our resources and use them more strategically. As we enter negotiations on the next long-term budget, I know I can count on the Parliament's support for our Global Europe envelope and a strong administrative budget also to manage our 145 delegations all across the world. I would also like to address the ongoing investigation here which prompted 2 resignations. I reiterate our full cooperation with the investigation and our complete transparency. I have full confidence in the authorities that due process is observed and that the presumption of innocence is maintained. I also have absolute confidence in the staff of External Action Service who deliver every day for our union and defend our interests all across the world. So let me briefly conclude. We have to celebrate what we have achieved this year as union and considering that we have been under extreme pressure. But at the same time, we must acknowledge that we are just only in the beginning. I welcome your continued engagement in the foreign policy and repeat my commitment to remain engaged with the European Parliament. So thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Kaja Kallas, for your introductory statement. I now give the floor to the coordinators. It's 2 minutes each, and 2 minutes, just to remind you, is 120 seconds. Michael Gahler is first.
Thank you very much. In principle, I can subscribe to everything that you said. You did not refer to some details, and that is where my questions go. Well, of course, we are not an obstacle to peace. That is very clear. And I hope that also on the American side, this is clear that we are partners, hopefully still. So my question on Ukraine is how far are we aware what is now the current state of affairs? We had the 28-point plan, then it was reduced with our involvement to a 20 or a 19-point. Now these 2 guys were in Moscow and negotiated something again. The Russians refused what we had in mind. So where do we stand? And what are our red lines in this regard, what we can accept standing behind Ukraine? When it comes to our leverage that you rightly said we need to use, what is the latest state of affairs on the reparations fund? Can we expect a solution that serves the purpose to support Ukraine or not? And when we look at the Americans by 2027 want us to take over quasi the entire conventional part of collective defense, don't we have to rethink all our financial planning in this regard and what we have envisaged both for the MFF but also when it comes to the SAFE program and the efforts that the member states primarily in their national budgets have to undertake? I think is there not a real need to far more coordinate our national defense budget efforts in light of this? Well, it's almost a threat when I look at what is in this national security plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. For the S&D, Nacho Sanchez-Amor.
Thank you, Chair. When we have to deal with the whole world in a very short session, it's very difficult to concentrate. I subscribe completely the words of my colleague about Ukraine. Now I would like to, in general, we subscribe the policies you have been to explain to us, but I would like to talk into issues. Our partnership on security and defense, that you mentioned some countries. Could you explain to the Chamber what is the current situation of the request of Turkey to be part of a SAFE program, meaning before being part has to sign a kind of partnership? And the other is United States. We are under fully fledged attack on our identity. It's not a political quarrel. It's not a difference about policies. It's an existential threat directed to the European Union. And I think, first, we have to encounter a common ground to tackle publicly the issue. The President of the Council, the President of the Commission, yourself, but you have to appear to the world consistently offering a common opinion on this kind of attacks. This is probably the final stage of the waiting stance that we have been sustaining for some months or a year, and then we have to react because this is not just, as I said, a difference on policies. This is an existential threat to the core of the European Union unity and consistency. And for that reason, I think we need a more common, strong response to the United States administration.
Thank you, Nacho. For the Patriots, our colleague Tangier Correa. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Kallas. While we are rightly focused on Ukraine and the Middle East, quite unsuccessfully, I must say, and in some elections, we are turning a blind eye to other conflicts that are tearing, namely Africa, apart. So it's about these conflicts I like to speak because everybody else will speak about Ukraine and the Middle East. In Sudan, the world's largest displacement crisis, around 14 million people have been forced to their homes and tens of thousands have been killed. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, over 7 million people are internally displaced and 7,000 people have been killed in the east this year alone as camps for displaced people and are shelled and destroyed. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of Christians were killed. More than 2.2 million remain displaced. In the northeast, around 295,000 were newly displaced last year. In northern Mozambique, jihadist violence has displaced over 500,000 people in Cabo Delgado, with churches burned and Christians and convents from Islam deliberately attacked. These are not marginal crises, Mrs. Kallas. They are mass graves, mass displacements, and systematic religious persecution. That is what I call strategic myopia towards Africa. Also in Brazil, is a situation very serious is going on against the state of law and arbitrary judicial actions that are tearing the country apart. All this should be of concern of our external policy and not only a few conflicts, because in these conflicts we can intervene and we should intervene and we can be successful, Mrs. Kallas. That's why I'm mentioning them, because it's very important that we assert our policy in these theatres that are classical theatres for the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the ECR, I don't see Adam Bilan. Arkadiusz, do you want to take the floor? 2 minutes.
Tak, dziękuję bardzo. Będę mówił po polsku. Szanowna pani...
Thank you. I'll speak Polish. Madam High Representative, regarding the war in Ukraine, you and other European leaders are showing a degree of skepticism in light of the efforts undertaken by American diplomacy. Personally, I am a great fan of, I'm not the greatest fan of rapprochement of the Russian border towards my country, Poland. But when it comes to the war in Ukraine, European policy has been quite hesitant and cautious. 100 Leopard tanks have been transferred to Ukraine, and before the war, Germany did not allow anti-drone systems to be transferred, or indeed other kinds of equipment, Today, France and Belgium continue to refuse to cooperate when it comes to use of frozen Russian assets. All this brings me to this question. Do you think pressure should be exerted on these member states who are refusing to cooperate? Today, you have an opportunity to speak about the attitudes of some member states. For instance, Germany, when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Furthermore, when we think about Bangladesh, we have a tragic situation, a real disaster on our hands, and it's the European Union that is funding the operations of the camps. So what can be done to make sure that Arab countries contribute to the funding of these refugee camps? I'm coming to a conclusion. Let me come to Latin America now. Venezuela, do you share the attitude of the United States?
To be fair, lots of colleagues want to take the floor. It's not fair if you speak longer. Next is Hilde Woutmans for Renew.
Well, thank you very much, High Representative, and thank you very much for your leadership, because, like you said in the beginning, we are facing really troubles, and I think we really also have to look to Europe herself to combat those troubles. But it's my colleague who will speak about that more. I'm just coming back from Washington, where I had different talks, but how will we stay united as Europe towards the US? That's my first question. Secondly, I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't talk about Africa. I'm the chair of the EU-Africa delegation. We just had a meeting in Angola, and we just had signed in Washington the peace agreement, but it's not at all a peace agreement, between Congo and Rwanda. This House voted 3 resolutions. And all I see is that all the world is shaking hands with Kagame. There is a council going on there, and nothing is changing on the field. People are being killed more than ever. Young mothers with their children in a hospital. They are 15 kilometers from Uvira. They will take the town. So my question is really urgently, what can Europe do more, please? Millions of people have been killed. There is a peace agreement, but the peace is further away than ever. I mean, every minute we get videos of children, child soldiers, mothers being killed. What does Europe do? The African country is of the utmost importance. I really hope, High Representative, that you are aware that Europe and Africa have to stand together. We have to react towards Kagame, because shaking hands with Trump, with Putin, taking the minerals away and killing people, that's not my point of view of Europe. So I urge you, do something on Sudan, on Congo and Rwanda, urgently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hilde. Next, for the Greens, Willy Schöndal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for being here. I would like to start with a quote. The larger issue facing Europe, inclusive activities of the European Union and other transnational bodies that undermine political liberty and sovereignty, migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, censorship of free speech and suppression of political opposition, creating birth rates and loss of national identities and self-confidence. Quote finished. This was not from Russia, the quote. That was released the day before yesterday from the American administration, the Trump administration. I just want to ask, this is fundamental questions raised. It's a criticism of us for not being democratic, not allow free speech, not allowing this continent to take care of itself. I mean, I think in my years of politics, I never experienced anything near to this insulting way of treating an ally. What do you say to that? What are the consequences of this? How would you describe the US if you should give a description of that in the present situation? And when this is serious, it's not just because of the insulting tone, which we have heard before from this administration. It has wide-ranging consequences for the cooperation, because you can cooperate with allies with whom you share values. Which values do we share for the time being? With an administration who is not for green transition, who is not for international strong bodies, who are not supporting Ukraine, who are a hindrance for peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you, Willy. For the left, Ms. Hassan, I understand.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Mrs. Kallas. Subsequent to Mrs. von der Leyen's announcement in her State of the Union speech in September, sanctions were proposed on Israeli ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and also against violent settlers. And in addition, it was proposed to suspend the trade part of the association agreement. But since the ceasefire, you yourself have recognized that the ceasefire has changed the situation, and I'm quoting there. And so that means that you're suggesting reviewing this idea of sanctions against Israel. Yesterday, the head of the Israeli army announced that the yellow line that divides the Gaza Strip and means that the Israeli army occupies 58% of Gaza is Israel's new border. That's what the general said. So that's de facto annexation of 62% of the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, there's effective annexation of most of it by Israel. 10,000 Palestinian political prisoners, cases of torture that have been widely documented, also by UN bodies. So we can't doubt their reliability. We have Israel's genocidal intentions vis-à-vis the Palestinians, which was recalled by a recent report by Amnesty International. So a very simple question for you. What is the point of all those efforts you're making to support the Palestinian Authority if you don't do the upstream work which would enable the Palestinian Authority to do its work properly, i.e. sanctioning Israel? And what about the issue of genocide? A question which you've dodged for around 2 years and something which many international observers believe is unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. And to conclude the round of coordinators for the ESN, Mr. Zell.
Vielen Dank, Herr Vorsitzender, und vielen Dank, Frau Kallas, dass Sie uns.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mrs. Kallas, for being here. Well, I can't really understand the irritation on the US strategy that we're seeing here, because their analysis is correct. Europe is destroying itself with a failed migration policy, failed climate policies which destroy our competitiveness in our industry, and also through censorship, which is undermining democratic discourse in Europe. So that is all absolutely correct. And relations with Washington are excellent. I mean, I represent the strongest party in Germany, and next week we'll be traveling to Washington with a large delegation. We have contacts right at the top. Unfortunately, when it comes to peace negotiations with regard to Ukraine, Europe is not involved. And we regret that, because a strong Europe should have a strong voice on the international stage. US Special Envoy visited, that's Mr. Witkoff, and he was visiting, but he was not seen by the VP for foreign and security policy. Now, we've also got this scandal with regard to your predecessor, Mrs. Mogherini. Now, we've been transferring massive amounts of money to Ukraine, but we've known that it's corrupt for years now. Anti-corruption authorities in Ukraine are being acted against by Zelensky, and he is refusing to look into where the corruption comes from and what's happening. So there are accusations against Zelensky, but there are accusations against the European External Action Service as well. So how are you going to ensure that the money that's being sent to Ukraine isn't simply spent on golden toilets, etc.? Thank you.
That's the first round of the coordinators. I will now give the floor to Kaja Kallas to respond. And then we will have a second round. Colleague, if you want to take the floor, more or less all of you in the room want to take the floor, but in case the few of you who have not indicated to take the floor, please indicate it to Marty, and then we will move on according to the Dohon procedure. But first we have Kaja Kallas to respond for roughly 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions. So first on Ukraine. We see the agreements and the discussions between Ukraine and United States, and then United States and Russia. What we clearly see is that there is not much pressure on Russia, and that's why we continue with this part, because we can't end up in a situation where there's peace agreement that actually rewards aggression, because then we will see more of it. We have, of course, put forward, points what are red lines for us. I mean, the respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of a nation, and return Ukrainian children. All these points we have. I think it is important that we keep on raising these issues when it comes to also putting pressure on Russia. And there, actually, the reparations loan comes into play, and the work is ongoing. We have the UCO coming up next week. Hopefully we'll get an agreement there. We are not there yet, but the work is ongoing. And this is important because it could be a game changer in many ways. I mean, first, it will send a signal to Russia that it can't outlast us. It will send also signal to Ukraine that we are helping them. And this is, I think, important in many ways. It's also a signal that you can't walk away with the damages that you are causing. What you asked about the US and the defense part of it. We are doing this. We are working very intensively with our, defense ministers. We just had the meeting with the EU defense ministers, and I really want to have more of those meetings with them, because they really need to, change the mindset from the national to the European, like, other ministers have. Because like you rightly say, you have the defense budgets, but the coordination between the defense budgets, because it's a national competence and it will remain a national competence. How can we do this? So we have proposed capability coalitions to really be led by the member states, but we can help them to, coordinate and come up with the joint procurements, come up with the joint projects, because again, some capabilities are too big for any of them or any countries alone to procure, and some are just, again, the interoperability and all of this. So we are intensively working on this, and really that's why we have the roadmap, and we're really pushing the member states. So on one hand, they're all saying that it's a member state competence. Member states should be in the driver's seat, but then the car should also get moving, which is important. Even if you are in the driver's seat, it's not just to be in the driver's seat, but actually drive, and that is what we are trying to push from our side. The question on partnerships on defense and with Turkey, the SAFE is now the deadline was the end of November. So those countries who are there, and of course in the SAFE you also have the part where member states can choose their own partners, and there are limitations how much you can procure from elsewhere. So there are limitations. These limitations very well. Some of the member states have issues with Turkey's bigger participation, and that has been counted on. Now, on your other question on the U.S. attacks on the European way, the strategy. I think we definitely should, and that's also answer to your question. I think we need to be more self-confident because, all of these things, you read them and regarding Europe, this is not true. I mean, it seems to me it's made to be a provocation so that we would react because, it is, again, the attention. Maybe, it's a paper, what we see, and also not very much following on different strategies, but that's beside the point. I think, we should be self-confident. We know that these things are not true. I mean, there was also article in Financial Times showing that, the issues that they are pointing out in the national security strategy are no worse in Europe than they are in America. But again, I think we are here now already for a year, and we should be, calm in this regard and work with what we can. It is true. I mean, the reactions always bring the divisions with America, who has been our biggest ally and still is our biggest ally. And divisions between European countries, which is also not good considering the situation where we are. So that's why, when we know that things are not true, I mean, in politics, if you go to debate on things that, this is not true, then you actually take it in. I mean, we know that this is ridiculous. It's not true what they're saying about the European Union. Again, coming from a country that was, didn't have a free media, didn't have liberties. I know what I'm talking about. I know the difference because I've been witnessing the other part. So I can tell Europe is very free and very liberal. On the Sudan and Congo and Mozambique and all these conflicts that you bring. I think the fundamental problem we see is that the general rules that we have agreed internationally in multilateral organizations do not apply. I mean, the world is clearly changing. We have had international rules-based orders so far, but it is clear that this is under a heavy attack now. So I think European Union's role has to be to defend this current international rules-based order that gives the UN Charter, that also says what you can do or what you can't do as a state to another country, and also what is very, very important is the accountability. Because if others see that all these crimes, all these wars go unpunished, then we will see more of it, and that is the danger. Now, what concretely, and you said that we have to intervene. I mean, that we have the missions and operations. We had the discussion with the European defense ministers on broader, aspects of the missions and operations we have, because, it's very often so that, let's open a new mission, let's send, help there, but we never then close any of the other missions that we have. But all of these missions require resources. And even if member states are saying, yes, we should have a mission there to intervene, to help, to keep the peace on the ground, then they're very often not providing the necessary resources and people. So that's what I said also in my speech, is that we really need to look into our missions and operations so that, to set clear objectives, also to listen to our partners in those countries for their needs, actually, because it's not that what we can, come up with, but actually what also they need to have peace. And I think also for the European Union, considering all the conflicts that are there in Africa, one of our role is to really try to avoid the tensions and the spillover effect to other countries. That's why we are also working with them. Now, to your question, skepticism regarding United States plans and our Ukraine policy being hesitant. I I mean, if all of member states would have given the support, the military support to Ukraine in the first months when this war started, that they are giving now, I think the outcome would have been different. That is what we know in hindsight, whereas we have already, 4 years into this war. But I don't agree to the argument that, for example, Germany hasn't been on board. I mean, Germany has been very strong and providing also the support that they are giving. And in terms of numbers, I mean, really considering the change that they have done. And when it comes to reparations loan, you have seen Chancellor Merz's very public comments also about, we should move on with this reparations loan. So I don't think they are the ones who are really objecting to this. Now, on Congo, Sudan, and everything that is happening there. I mean, in Sudan, we had just in the Foreign Affairs Council, we had the discussion on the put together the points, what we are supporting and how we approach. I mean, we are supporting, of course, the ceasefire negotiations. We have a very good special representative in the Horn of Africa that is trying to do this humanitarian access and also protection of civilians. But also what is very, very important is the clear way towards civilian governance of Sudan, because the warring parties, this will just continue. And the other point, what we also agreed is accountability. Again, if we don't have accountability, then these things keep on happening, but it's increasingly difficult. When it comes to Congo, then the steps that we have taken on the European level also regarding Rwanda. I mean, we have restrictive measures against individuals and entities fueling and taking advantage of the conflict. We have suspended consultations with Rwanda, but it's clear that this is still ongoing, so we need to do more. We are in contact with our African partners constantly. I mean, although this peace was agreed or declared, actually there is no peace. And this is actually something more fundamental that I want to say about all these conflicts. One thing is to get to this peace agreement and say that, the leaders agree that there's now a peace agreement and that's it. But, you need the whole of society approach, that people actually refrain from hate speech, that they build on how these atrocities would never happen again, because everybody suffers, the people suffer. And that's why you need the civil society that we support. You need everybody that's my time. Okay, sorry. On board. And there where European Union really comes in place, not only, the agreements, but actually the long-term sustainable peace and sanctions on Israel. I mean, ceasefire was the first step, and everybody welcomed the ceasefire and the peace plan and the UN Security Council resolution also on Palestine. But of course, now we need to also make it work in practice, and it is not working the way it should be. There were already a lot of questions in the Security Council resolution, but we also thought that we can work on the way. Now, the point that you're making is very important, is that, even if we are, supporting the Palestinian Authority, but then how do we get from the place where there's ceasefire to the place where actually Palestinians have the ownership of their own state? I mean, to the two-state solution, and they can operate with all these challenges that are there. And that's why I think the support from us is extremely important. Now, what the European Council, the Foreign Affairs Council, where you have the Foreign foreign ministers. The measures that we proposed are on the table. So some of the countries want to go further with the measures because, like you say, the things that are happening on West Bank are still ongoing, and we have deplored these steps. But on the other hand, you have those who say that now there's ceasefire in place and we should take everything off the table. So that's why the compromise right now is that we see where this is going. We try to influence. We are part of the Civilian and Military Cooperation Center to steer this into the right direction. But the risk of putting the measures in place is still there. And you know this. It's not a personal decision, but you need 27 member states to agree, and 27 member states are having very different views. So we concentrate on those things where we agree, like the humanitarian aid getting in, and where we can help that there would be peace and long-standing and sustainable peace on the ground. Sorry for being long.
Thank you, Kaja Kallas, for this first round. Before we continue, let me first of all welcome our long-serving chairman of the AFET committee, Elmar Brok, who is with us. Elmar, herzlich willkommen. And now I go to the second round. We have a long list of colleagues who want to take the floor. So that everyone can speak, it's 1 minute, please, 60 seconds. And we kick off with Sandra Kalniete for the EPP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Kaja, for your report. I will be very strict. Pressure on Russia is not a peace plan. EU needs to formulate in a single document its own peace plan proposal. My second question is about frozen assets. If there is no agreement on the 18th December Council, then what? How EU will provide the financial support which Ukraine needs badly? And my third question is, does EU has a plan to support Ukraine if United States will pressure Ukraine to accept territorial concessions to Russia by deciding not to provide intelligence to Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you. Tonino Pizzula.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam High Representative, for your assessment concerning plethora of challenges that we as the EU are facing. I would therefore like to ask you a question concerning security challenges in the Western Balkans you didn't mention so far. How do you see the overall security situation in the region, and what do you see as ongoing challenges? We do see presence and influence of assertive out of EU powers there, especially Russia in Serbia. That powers unfortunately combine efforts with some political forces coming within the European Union. Finally, I would like to raise a topic of the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo. How do you see the stale dynamic of the dialogue, and do you believe that the dialogue in its current format is the way forward, or should we consider possible revision of the approach? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Juliana Zovko, EPP.
Thank you very much. Madam Commissioner, I invited you a few weeks ago to attend the meeting on the anniversary of the 30 years of Dayton Peace Agreement. You didn't come, you didn't have time. Last week I was at the hearing in US Congress on the situation in Western Balkan, where Max Primorac has offered the European Parliament a solution for Bosnia and Herzegovina and to stop social engineering and to save and preserve at least some peace and reconciliation in that country by giving all three communities what Dayton-Paris Peace Agreement guaranteed to them. After that, I was attacked by Minister of Defense, naming me a bastard and retarded because I attended to this hearing in American Congress. American Embassy stood with Max Primorac, who is an American citizen. Luigi Soreca, your ambassador, is still not giving any declaration, not standing with me as a representative of European Parliament, of defending European Parliament's decisions. And please, do something about your ambassadors who are on the ground, who are not standing with the women, not standing with MEPs, and not standing with their job, what they are paid for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Ferenc, PFE.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Hungarian. Tisztelt főképviselő asszony!
Dear Madam Kallas, I honestly ask you, what do you think? What serves citizens' interests better? Continuing war or peace? Hundreds of thousands have lost their homes, and people in Ukraine are surviving for years and years. And there is a danger that these horrors would spread to Europe. And I come from that area, and there's another lady, Marta Sebestyén, who comes from Transcarpathia, and she has lost her brother because he had to go and enroll in the army. How many of such tragic losses will people have to suffer? And you can deny it, but the situation is the same. You can see the reports of the Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner. People are forced to join the army. They are very cruelly treated. You are just sitting sitting by, and you watch a flowering corruption and this situation continuing. Thank you.
Next is Helmut Brandstätter, Renew.
Thank you, Chair. High Commissioner, it was very good you said Europe has to be more self-confident towards the United States. I agree. The question is, how do we show our self-confidence? Just imagine there was a European strategy explaining that America is not a democracy, that we want the change of a regime, that we don't want to accept their laws, and so on and so forth. I mean, they would have told us very exactly what they think. And that's what I miss. Shouldn't we be more exact to explain that the way the Americans are treating us is not, we cannot accept it. But my question is, are we strong enough? Are we united enough? Are we strong enough? And what can we do, what can you do to show them that we are strong enough? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is our Vice Chair, Hanna Jalul. Muru.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for coming here. I will say that your statements are always commonplaces, and and you talk a lot, but you never say anything. Really disappointed indeed, and I think we need to prepare more in depth all the topics we are talking about. So you talk about accountability, but you have said anything about the 70,000 Palestinians killed, which it is very disappointing. And of course, we are all with the ceasefire, and I guess what Hamas have done, of course. But I mean, we have extreme right government that is violating ceasefires daily. More than 300 Palestinians killed since the ceasefire. We want peace, but also we want to stop the killing of the Palestinians. Any mention, but we talk about accountability when we talk about other people. Second, we talk about the United States self-confidence. How are we going to have self-confidence if our High Representative doesn't defend ourselves? How are we going to be self-confident if when you talk about the negotiations in Russia, we are not in the table and they are asking us to give territory to Russia like this for free? We want to have self-confidence. Europe has to be in the negotiations. We have to be very tough in these issues, and we cannot talk about anything that's not territorial integrity of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Next is Francisco Milan Mon.
Gracias. Thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Señora Kallas, si queremos ser...
Mrs. Kallas, well, if we want to be a global player, we need to boost our relations with other regions that share ideas, values and principles with us. Latin America, for example. I welcome that the EU CELAC summit took place and that you were there. I'm rapporteur for the political part of the Mercosur agreement, and I'd like to highlight the importance of that text, and I hope that it will come into force as soon as possible, and I'm sure you'll do everything you can to ensure that it's signed. Let me now refer to Venezuela. I think we need to be clearer when it comes to Venezuela. Our position cannot only highlight the importance of maritime security in the Caribbean and the non-use of force. We also need to talk about defending human rights and fundamental freedoms and the need for democratic change in Venezuela. Maria Machado will be receiving a Nobel Prize today or tomorrow, so we need to welcome that and say that we welcome it out loud. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is our colleague Asens Rodra from the Greens.
Buenos días, señora Kallas. Gracias por venir hoy aquí.
Good morning, Ms. Kallas. Thank you for coming to the Parliament today. I don't know whether you saw what happened in Jerusalem yesterday. Israel went into a UN building, they stole material, equipment, and they took down the UN flag and they put up their flag. Are we supposed to do the same at the European Union institutions? Should we take down the EU flag and put up the American flag and the Israeli flag? Because it seems that we're just being the puppets in this new imperial order of Trump and Netanyahu. You say that we need to defend the rule-based order, but in fact you're doing the opposite. The International Court of Justice says that we're dealing with a genocide, but Europe continues to collaborate with the genocide with its weapons and its money. On top of that, we aren't accepting what the International Court of Justice resolutions say. We're actually accepting sanctions from Trump on the UN. So we're not doing enough to protect our institutions. This is inconsistent. If you believe in this international order, you would do something to protect it, and you wouldn't go along with Trump and Netanyahu's whims. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Sherba, EPP.
Good afternoon, Madam President and dear colleagues. The most important task is for Europe to build up its own strength. Recently, the EU-US relations has been about managing uncertainty, but relations are now in crisis. We have to say it openly. Our committee and me as a standing rapporteur on the US, we have prepared a report on the EU-US political relations. It's very timely, it's very assertive, and I hope it will be adopted soon by the House. With this report, we are ready to help you and the EU institution to coordinate EU's approach to transatlantic partnerships and map a way forward. I think we have to demonstrate, and EU has to demonstrate that it can carry its weight. We want to foster the best relations possible while preparing for different scenarios. So my question will be about these scenarios, and what is your recommendation for us to react on a US national security strategy? And the second thing is about strategic partnership. What will be the next step? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Ballarin Sereta.
Thank you, Chair. High Representative, I was expecting more, way more, not only because you barely mentioned areas like Latin America or Africa, but because of your reaction to the US national security strategy. In the worst moment of transatlantic relations, you only said that this document sent us the sign that we need to be self-confident, and in the second round that it's ridiculous, that it says things that are not true, and that it's just a paper. Well, for me, it's not just a paper. It's an official document. It's official policy by a former ally, because when this document says that EU should be undermined and destroyed, that buys the slogans of the EU extreme right, talking about civilization crisis, decline, identity, that they need to help the enemies of Europe, that we don't share the values anymore, and it is being applauded by Russia, it should raise a red flag. So this is a wake-up call, and I ask you again, please, can you be stronger in our reaction to this document, which is not ridiculous, and it's very worrying to this chamber, to the voters, and to the whole Europe? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Urmas Pait. 1 minute.
Well, thank you very much. There is a very good film at the moment at the cinemas called Nuremberg. And unfortunately, the content of this film is also very actual these days. So my question is that where we are with legal and criminal responsibilities, what concerns Russian criminal leadership and atrocities and crimes committed during last 11 years against Ukrainians. So that here I also would like to see that the European Union is much more vocal and acting systematically to reach this goal that there will be no impunity for this kind of awful crimes. And it also brings me to this, that unfortunately we see that more and more leaders of also even so-called democratic countries are very much together with Putin. We just saw state visit of Putin to India and all this expression of huge friendship. So that in this regard also my question is that how we handle third countries who actually don't care what Putin's criminal regime has done in Ukraine and welcomes this criminal leader as, well, big and mostly welcomed friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Urmas. Next is Evin Insir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, High Representative, for being with us today. My question concerns Turkey. As we all know, EU has a very close relationship with Turkey in many different ways. At the same time as the situation in the country have been deteriorating, we see opposition leaders after opposition leaders being jailed. It was Selahattin Demirtas, then it was İmamoğlu, and it just continues. However, not long time ago, the peace process between PKK and the AKP government started, which it led to the dissolvement of PKK, which is, of course, an important step. However, we haven't seen any steps being taken from the side of the AKP government towards a long, sustainable peace in Turkey. So what is the European Union and what are you doing to ensure that both sides are taking their share of responsibility to ensure both peace but also pave the way for a democratic future of Turkey? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Orlando.
Signor Alto Commissario, una domanda non...
Commissioner, a question on the European Commission that you represent, not on European General. And I think clearly there is a convergence between unbridled capitalism represented by Musk and this kind of Trump-Putin nationalism. And they seem to be trying to prevent any kind of building of a global order, so the International Criminal Court, the European Union, any kind of organisation that's built on peace, equality, etc. So a very simple question. Don't you think we should criticise the European Commission quite apart from what any member states are doing? I mean, shouldn't we be criticising the Commission for the fact that the US are not allies, because EU institutions are being insulted, we're being forced to buy US weapons, tariffs, we're being forced to be complicit in Netanyahu's genocide. I think we need a strong voice from the Commission. You can't simply hide behind the attitude of individual states, because they're constantly tempted to stand behind Putin and Trump. Thank you.
Next is Bernard Guetta, 1 minute.
Madame la Vice-Présidente,
Madam Vice Chair, in many member states, analysts from the different parties feel humiliated by the American document on national security. I myself didn't feel humiliated, I felt attacked, which is completely different. But I do feel humiliated by the weakness of our reaction. I understand that we can't stoop down to the same level of civilizational decline as the United States. We can't use the same language. And we can't express the same primitive ideas, but why not calmly and politely but firmly respond point by point to all of the incoherent messages in this document, full of lies. With our silence, we're not just encouraging the Americans to continue down this path, but we're also encouraging the very bad image that Putin has of us. He thinks we are cowards, and we aren't, and we need to show that fact.
Thank you. Next is Dan Barna.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Vice President, two very precise questions. First one, you mentioned in the open Moldova was a great example that the resilience is possible over this threat from Russia and the hybrid attack. And it's the time for Europe to deliver back to Moldova. Any progress in the perspective from opening the negotiations? This is the first one. And the second one is, we are starting in the Parliament to discuss about the MFF, about the budget. How is yours? Okay, you are from the Commission. I can imagine the position, but I'm asking: is the current budget, which is allocated for your minister, sufficient, effective? You feel it is okay? You need some improvement? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Barna. Did we miss any colleague up here? If that is not the case, I will use the last minute. Dear Kaja Kallas, you mentioned the security and defence partnerships of the European Union, and the United Kingdom has also agreed a security and defence partnership with us. I must say I deeply regret that the United Kingdom will not participate in the first round of SAFE. Could you shed some light why the talks with the UK government collapsed and how we can move things forward? Because the UK is a very important strategic partner for us, an absolutely reliable ally. I was in London last week, and cross-party there was a lot of confusion and misunderstanding why the United Kingdom, as one of our closest allies and partners, is not able to participate in the SAFE programme. And now I give the floor to you for 15 minutes. We will close at roughly 12 o'clock. Please.
Okay, a lot. Pressure on Russia is not the peace plan. Yes, true, but right now we need the pressure so that Russia would come from the point where they are pretending to negotiate to actually negotiate. And we are not there. I mean, we have had these peace plans that we put forward that are idealistic because, you know, we can't push Ukraine into these concessions because I think it's fundamentally wrong. And that's why we need to have these requirements and we have drafted those, what we need to see from Russian side as well, because the Russian side is the problem. I mean, in last 100 years, they have attacked 19 countries, some as many as 3 or 4 times, and none of these countries has ever attacked Russia. So that's why, I mean, right now they're just pretending. Now, why I think it's dangerous, and we see this actually happening, is that everybody's walking into those Russian traps, putting the pressure on Ukraine because otherwise, you know, Russia is not coming to the table, and then you will get, you know, the baseline where, you know, Ukraine has agreed to concessions and Russia not. So that is the baseline where it only can get worse. So that's why we have had this very, very clear stance that we should not walk into those traps, and we have clear points that we want to see. And again, I want to stress, I mean, have some self-confidence in this regard that for any peace plan to work, it needs Europeans. So, you know, you can agree whatever, but if the Europeans or Ukrainians are not agreeing to this, then it just doesn't work. So we have leverage in this regard to also make asks for Russia. Now, President Costa has said that we will not leave the European Council next week before we have the decision on the financing of Ukraine, whether it's, you know, reparations loan or something else. That he has been very firm on this, and the work is ongoing. Now, Western Balkans. This is, I mean, very important. Our neighborhood, one is the enlargement process that is ongoing, and I really hope that we will see positive developments when it comes to some of the Western Balkan countries to move forward. At the same time, there also needs to be this confidence building between the communities in the Western Balkans, and we have been trying to do this because there are tensions building up. I mean, I've personally, you know, did the reach out to Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, bring them together. Can we move on, you know, small steps so that actually, you know, we come from the place where everybody's saying that, you know, you did this to me, and you know, accusing each other to the point where we can focus on these things never happening again. And there, actually, I think the enlargement process is a very good tool to you know, agree and move, you know, little steps which are needed. Belgrade-Pristina dialogue has been stalling right now because we don't have a Kosovo, we don't have a government in Kosovo. So although I have the agreement from the political level as well to sit down. But what I want to stress here, when I go to the Western Balkans and talk to the young people, I really stress to my team as well, we need to work with the young people because, you know, if the young people who have been born after, all these atrocities happened, still have the same kind of hate and attitude, then we're never gonna, get there. The normalization of the relationship that is actually required and needed for both of them. So really to have these confidence building measures also with the young people to get over, okay, that was the past, let's focus on the future, so that we see not the future through the past, but actually the past through the future where we want to get. So I'm personally devoting a lot of time to this, although yes, it doesn't show because it's not that public as all the other conflicts that we have, but I'm working on that. And on that also, I apologize for not coming to your event, and I apologize for all the MEPs who have invited me to come to your events, but I just, have seen that there are 365 days in a year and not more, so I apologize for that. But it doesn't mean that we don't take these issues seriously. What you're pointing out is a very regrettable incident, and there will be a written follow-up because I didn't know about these things. As general, I can say that the ambassadors that I've met are very dedicated people, very hardworking people, representing Europe well. But of course, if there's any feedback, then please turn to us. But I think we can't just blame or put a mark on all of them. Europe is standing for peace. Europe is a peace project. This is what we are working on. Now, the problem is, of course, that who doesn't want peace is Russia. You need at least two to want peace. And I remind you that Ukraine agreed to unconditional ceasefire already in February, whereas Russia is just keeping bombing Ukrainian cities. And by the way, 93% of Russian targets have been civilian targets. Hospitals, schools, apartment buildings, energy infrastructure to cause as much pain and suffering for the people. So it is clear that the one that doesn't want peace is Russia. And that's why, again, I come to the point where we have to pressure Russia so that it would come from the point of, pretending to negotiate to actually negotiate, and we will have peace. And the first step would be ceasefire, to actually sit down and talk. Then on the self-confidence again, my feeling is that if we go into, the fight in pointing fingers, we can also point a lot of fingers what is wrong in America, but this is not the way we work. We are not going to meddle with the internal affairs of other countries. What is important is that what we do regarding this, and that's why, all the steps we are taking, I'm not saying the words, but I'm saying in practice, we are, building up our own defense. We are building up our own defense industry. We are working on getting rid of dependencies, because the dependencies also hurt us. That's why building partnerships with the countries all around the world. And I can tell you that there is a lot of appetite for working with us because we are the reliable and credible partner. And that is what we need to use, not the words, not go into word fights, who said what about, when we know it's really not true. So that is what we need. On Venezuela, where do I have the paper? Yes. So we keep defending that yes, you're there. That Maduro lacks legitimacy, and it's also important for us to keep the presence on the ground at the same time. And we are in contact with the representatives of the opposition. and also we support the fight against the transnational organized crime. When I was in Latin America, when we had the EU CELAC summit, then I was listening very carefully what the Latin American and Caribbean countries were saying. It's a problem. I mean, these are global challenges that require also global solution when it comes to drug trafficking. Very much the drugs are coming to European countries, and they have a big issue with the gangs that are really taking hold of, different countries. And then, I come to my first round of answers is like really, we are in this moment where rules, it's a complete chaos. Rules just don't apply. And that's why we are the ones who have been fighting and defending the rules. And I must say that all around the world, we have a lot of countries who are looking up at us that, are you doing this? Are you defending the international order? So we are also backing you. And that's why I think this is extremely important. Every step we take has to be in accordance with international law. Then on Jerusalem, what I want to stress, European Union is not sending any weapons. It's member states who are having these agreements. And clearly, I mean, we have to do more. That's why I have pushed also regarding the violent settlers, for example, that we have clear sanctions. And there we have 26 countries in favor and 1 against. So we actually have a broad majority to move on with this, but it has been hard, and we are in contact with the Israelis all the time, and also the regional partners to really call on them to stop the action, and that's why, I mean, right now, as we have the ceasefire, it's a fragile time. We need to build up the international stabilization force, but of course the question is about the mandate, which is not clear when we talk about, the countries around the world who have said that they are willing to send troops to keep the peace in the international stabilization force. Then nobody of them wants to be the one who is disarming Hamas. So it has to be Palestinian police who does that, and that's why we have offered to train the Palestinian police on the EUPOL COPS mission to really have the ownership of the Palestinians in the processes that are going on there. Nuremberg, actually, the book is even better, but I understand where you're taking these parallels. And I have a good news for you, which is that on the 16th of December, so next week, we have in Hague the initialing of signing of the convention for the claims commission. So we are going, as we have pushed this specialized tribunal for the crimes of aggression forward, and these are little steps we do. So the signing will be in Hague Tuesday. So we haven't forgotten about this, and we work on the accountability. When it comes to the third countries, believe me, maybe I can't say it publicly here, but I have managed to convince some countries to not have meetings with Putin because, I understand why Putin needs this. I don't understand why everybody else needs this, because he needs this to be recognized on the international arena like nothing has happened and nothing to see here. And this is one other point that I want to stress is that it's also a narrative fight in the world. I mean, who is for peace? Who is for war? And Russia is trying to paint the picture that, we are the obstacle of peace, which is the opposite of truth, really. And we really need to reach out to the third countries all the time to explain what is at stake. Sometimes they listen. Sometimes they have much stronger ties with Russians. I don't know why, because usually we are giving them much more money. We are the biggest trading partners, or far larger than Russia, but somehow they still believe them. And Moldova, there is progress in the negotiations, and they are really doing well. And now, after the elections, as we put so much effort also into helping them to fight the foreign malign interference and influence, then this is really moving forward on a positive pace. And to your other question on the MFF and budget, I mean, there is not enough. So if you want an honest answer, we are struggling, of course, with the administrative budget of our 145 delegations. Like I said a year ago, I will not close any of the delegations, but the security issues in our delegations are also higher, so the needs actually for funding are higher. And then we have the Global Europe, where I also hope that you support the part of the budget, although it was already cut, and we need much more because the global challenges are much bigger. But we are not just, asking or requesting for more. We are actually doing also reforms on our side to be more effective, to be more agile, to be more relevant in the European sphere. And to your question on the UK, I was not part of the negotiations, and I must say I was also quite sad that it didn't reach an agreement. But again, as for the SAFE, UK can participate also via the bilateral agreements with the member states who are applying together with them. So 35% of those agreements can also come from others outside European Union. So they are definitely not out of the defense cooperation. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I guess the High Representative Vice President covered all our questions and comments. Dear Kaja, may I thank you for coming. Thank you for your valuable insights. You're always welcome in the Foreign Affairs Committee. This is your home committee in the European Parliament. I close this meeting, and before I do that, is there any other business to be raised? And colleagues, our next meeting will be on the 11th of December, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and thank you once again, dear Kaja Kallas.